Welcome to the deep dive. It feels like every day there's just this flood of information, right? It's a real challenge trying to figure out what's actually important, what's shaping things, and well, what really matters to you. So our mission here is simple: cut through all that noise. We want to bring you the key insights, the important stuff, straight to your ears. And for today's deep dive, we really want to thank StockTelescope.com. They provided just a fantastic range of source material. We're talking top-tier sources: Reuters, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, CNBC, The Verge, BBC. It gives us a really solid, rounded view. Okay, so let's set the scene. It's Monday, June 23rd, 2025, and already it feels like a pretty significant day. Lots happening globally, some interesting market moves too. Today we're going to try and connect some dots. We'll look at these rising geopolitical tensions and how they're hitting the economy. Then there's the tech side. AI is just moving so fast, changing big industries. And finally, some maybe quieter shifts, but really important ones in healthcare and retail that affect our daily lives.
Exactly. Think of this as your shortcut to, well, getting what's really going on. We're not just reading headlines back at you. The idea is to connect things, show you the implications underneath, helping you grasp the why behind it all. It's about being genuinely informed, not just scrolling through news feeds.
Right. Let's start with that geopolitical stage then, because it's definitely making waves in the markets immediately. Equities had a cautious start this week. The S&P 500 dipped a bit, down 0.22%. Nasdaq fell about 0.5%. The Dow, though, it managed to stay slightly positive, up just 0.08%. And this hesitation, it seems, directly linked to the U.S. formally entering the conflict between Israel and Iran, right, striking those nuclear sites over the weekend. And then today, reports of Israeli airstrikes in Tehran, targeting a Revolutionary Guard center and Evin prison.
Yeah, that direct U.S. involvement is a major, major escalation. It shifts the whole dynamic in an already incredibly tense region. The immediate reaction,
Right.
Iran vowing retaliation. And you saw that flicker in oil prices. They spiked briefly, then settled up maybe 0.4%. But the key thing here isn't just that small price jump. It's the underlying fear about the Strait of Hormuz.
The choke point.
Exactly. About 20% of the world's oil flows through there. Any disruption, even the threat of one, sends shockwaves. It's not just energy prices, it's global supply chains. Everything. So Brent crude hit $81 for a moment, but then pulled back a bit. That reflects, I think, the immediate uncertainty. What's Iran's next move? Plus, you have ongoing diplomatic efforts. Russia, the EU trying to push for de-escalation. They know how dangerous a wider war would be.
Well, absolutely. And that wider economic impact. It immediately brings up worries about inflation, doesn't it? And consumer spending. So all eyes are now on Fed Chair Powell. He's testifying before Congress later this week. He'll probably stick to the cautious script, I imagine, especially since May, inflation wasn't too alarming, and the tariff impact seems limited so far. What are markets hoping to hear or maybe fearing from him, given these new tensions?
Well, Powell's testimony always moves markets, but this week, yeah, it's definitely amplified by these external shocks. His cautious stance is this really tricky balancing act. He needs to manage inflation expectations without, killing economic growth. Investors will be parsing every single word, looking for any hints about the interest rate outlook, especially how they might factor in, say, higher energy costs or new supply chain issues from the Middle East conflict. If you step back, the Fed's juggling these external geopolitical shocks alongside all the domestic economic data. It just adds layers of complexity to their job.
Okay, so while geopolitics is grabbing the headlines, the tech world, as always, just keeps sprinting forward. Let's shift to that AI frontier, because it really is reshaping things incredibly quickly. First up, Tesla's Robotaxi. The launch we've been hearing about forever, it finally happened, sort of. Limited service kicked off in Austin, just 10 to 20 Model Ys apparently. Invite only, small, geo-fenced area, flat fare of $4.20. It feels small, but maybe significant. Broader rollout planned for 2026.
Oh, it's absolutely significant, even this small start. And here's why it's more than just like a tech demo. This limited launch isn't just about proving the self-driving tech works. That's part of it, sure. But it's maybe even more about navigating the other stuff, the regulations, the business model for ride-hailing, insurance, liability. These are often bigger hurdles than the AI itself.
Right, the practicalities.
Exactly. How well this tiny deployment goes will really set the pace for everything else. It could totally transform urban transport and, frankly, Tesla's entire business model down the line. It does raise that big question, though. How fast can regulators actually keep up? And what kind of precedent does this set for everyone else working on autonomous vehicles?
Good point. And Tesla's not alone in pushing hard on AI. Look at Meta. They seem to be going all in, offering huge pay packages, trying to acquire AI startups left and right. Mark Zuckerberg himself is apparently leading this really aggressive recruitment drive for a new superintelligence lab,
Mm.
even though they've apparently had some internal AI setbacks and, huge pressure from Google, OpenAI, others.
Well, this push by Meta, with Zuckerberg personally involved, it just underscores this intense AI arms race happening among the tech giants, calling it a superintelligence lab.
Hmm.
That suggests a really long-term, almost foundational goal. It's not just about improving current products, it's about aiming for future dominance. It's fascinating because, yeah, they face challenges, internal and external, but they're pouring resources in because they know leadership in AI could define, well, everything. Market cap, influence across almost every industry. This isn't just about making better chatbots or recommendation engines anymore. It's about who builds the next fundamental computing platform.
And speaking of Meta, they didn't just recruit. They also just unveiled new smart glasses with Oakley. Starting around 399 blossers, 3K video, 8-hour battery, Meta AI built in. Seems like another attempt to bridge that gap between the digital and real worlds.
Yeah, it's another step in that direction, trying to weave digital stuff seamlessly into our physical reality. What's maybe different this time is the design focus, trying to make them look more like regular glasses, more socially acceptable perhaps than some previous attempts we've seen from others.
Like Google Glass, maybe?
Right. Success here won't just be about the tech specs, though. It'll be about utility. Do people find them genuinely useful day to day? Can they break out of being a niche gadget? It's Meta doubling down on that bet for a future where computing is just ambient, almost invisible in how we interact with it.
Interesting. Okay, so beyond the big headlines of geopolitics and AI, there are these other shifts happening, maybe quieter, but really impacting daily life. Let's touch on healthcare and retail. First, health. Some potentially really good news for consumers. Major U.S. health insurers, CVS Health, United Health, Cigna, they're pledging to streamline prior authorizations. The goal is real-time approvals by 2027 and cutting back the types of claims needing review by 2026. That sounds like a big deal.
It is a big deal. This feels like a direct response to years, decades, really, of frustration from everyone. Patients, doctors, hospitals. Prior authorization has been this massive barrier, causing delays, creating tons of paperwork, just a real headache.
Yeah.
So if they actually follow through and implement this properly, it could genuinely speed up access to care, reduce the administrative load on doctors' offices, make the whole system a bit less painful, more efficient. It's a move towards using tech, automation, maybe some regulatory pressure, too, to fix a long-standing problem.
And still on healthcare, but looking forward.
Yeah.
Weight loss drugs.
Mm-hmm.
This seems like another area just exploding. Novo Nordisk, huge player here, just reported full phase 3 data for their drug CagriSema. The results sound pretty remarkable, up to 23% weight loss. Side effects, mostly mild.
Mhm.
They're planning to file for approval early 2026, hoping for the green light in 2027.
Yeah, that 23% weight loss figure is substantial. Really substantial. This isn't just tweaking existing obesity management. This could potentially transform how obesity is treated altogether. Think about the huge public health impact of obesity, all related diseases, the strain on healthcare systems, the cost.
Mm-hmm.
Highly effective medications like this, if they prove safe long-term, could become first-line treatments, maybe reducing the need for things like bariatric surgery for many people. It could really reshape the whole landscape for millions.
Wow. Okay, shifting gears one last time to retail. Kroger had some interesting news. Their shares jumped over 9% on Friday. They raised their full-year sales forecast. Q1 earnings per share beat expectations. E-commerce sales looked strong, up 15%. But at the same time, they announced plans to close 60 stores that aren't performing well. That's about 5% of their stores over the next 18 months. So good news and some trimming.
It's a classic picture of retail evolution, really. Kroger's strategy shows how they're adapting. Brick and mortar is still vital, obviously. But that strong e-commerce growth, combined with shedding underperforming stores, that's them optimizing for how people shop now and how competitive it is.
Right. Streamlining.
Exactly. You need that mix. Strong physical presence where it makes sense, but also investing heavily in digital and being willing to cut loose the parts that aren't working. It's about staying agile in a really tough, fast-changing market.
Okay, wow. We've definitely covered a lot of ground today. From those immediate market jitters tied to the U.S. entering the Iran conflict to the big strategic moves by companies like Tesla and Meta in AI and beyond, and then those significant shifts in healthcare access. new treatments on the horizon, and how retailers like Kroger are navigating change. Not to forget the ongoing backdrop of Ukraine and major policy decisions bubbling up.
And that's really the whole point of the deep dive, isn't it?
Hmm.
To give you that concise but still thorough understanding, connecting these complex events, this data, so you can see the bigger picture. Our goal is just to help empower you to be truly well-informed, to see the links you might miss in the daily news churn.
So as we wrap up, here's something to maybe chew on today. How do you think these threads, rapid tech advances like AI and robotaxis, corporate strategies and consolidation, alongside this simmering geopolitical instability in places like Iran and Ukraine, how might they all weave together? How could they redefine not just economies, but maybe our actual daily lives in the next few years? What kind of ripple effects could today's headlines have on innovation, on global power dynamics down the road? Lots to think about. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive today. We genuinely hope you found it useful, maybe spark some new connections. If you want to keep getting these kinds of curated, in-depth analyses, please do subscribe to the deep dive wherever you get your podcasts. It really is the best way to make sure you don't miss out on future insights. Thanks again for listening.